has been rainy. It's just been very rainy. My days. There's a large trailer truck. And they're just turning. It's really funny. I was watching a linguist, this guy who is here. I'm not sure if he's autistic or manic or what, but he is quite something on YouTube. He is very illustrious. He has a certain amount of buoyancy, vibrancy. He likes to info dump a lot, which one gathers certain attitudes and behaviors about his personality, because he likes to create languages all the time. And it's like, dude, you have certain tendencies in your behavior. He likes to create bird languages. That's his favorite thing to do, is create bird and dolphin languages. And it's like, are you just pantomiming that you're autistic, or are you actually autistic? Or are you just a linguist? Who knows? It's terribly dangerous to make assumptions about someone's personality or behaviors on the internet when you know nothing about them as a human being. All I know is he's quite into making languages. And he has quite a spasmodic behavior set. Quite illustrious, quite buoyant. Very into his skill set. Which could mean a lot of things. You could just be very into linguistics. But there are certain inferences that we make as a culture about people's personalities, attitudes, and ideas about the world based on the words, behaviors, and attitudes that they present themselves as, which is fascinating when you get into psychoanalytics. He's presenting a character, and that's really comes down to. Which may or may not be necessarily true. Just like as you are online, you are presenting some face of yourself, which may or may not be the most accurate presentation of yourself, because when we present ourselves online, there is a certain amount of self-censorship. Fascinating, right? What do we share? What do we don't share? Who are we? Who are we really? People make wild assumptions about who you are. This goes back to, let me tell you a story. When I worked for Hearst Magazines, CDS Global, I worked in the subscription department of CDS Global, which is Hearst Magazines. So, I did Condé Nast magazines, I did Hearst magazines. So, but I worked specifically on the tier of Johnson Publishing, which was Ebony, Jet, and all of the black label magazines. Specifically magazines that are of for black people And so people made the wildest assumptions about who I was as a person based on those magazine titles. I would take calls under that tier, and people would say that I was an unemployed, and mind you, I'm taking calls under this call tier at a call center. I was an unemployed, uneducated black woman with 4 kids. People would say that on a regular basis, and I was like, what about you, what about me suggests that I am, first of all, black, second of all, uneducated, third of all, what in my voice says that I have 4 children, and fourth of all, it's like people make the wildest assumptions. People would tell me that I was African, that I literally was from Africa, and that my call center was based out of Africa. And I said, what country? And they couldn't tell me what. You know, Americans are the smartest bunch, let me tell you. Yeah, just people making wild assumptions. Mostly false assumptions. And that's why when I ever have an assumption about something, I tend to question it as whether or not it's actually real, because usually my assumptions are false. Totally wrong, totally mind-blowingly wrong, because the way that we see people through our filter of our perceptions are mostly false, and that we have ideas in our head about people that we have built up through our experiences, but even our experiences are filters of reality shaped on our own experiences, which are filters that are, you know what I mean? It's all a filter of reality. Very, very interesting. Filters are based on our moods and attitudes, which change over time based on how we're remembering those. It's very fascinating. Like when we're angry and we remember a memory, and that shapes how we perceive ourselves and other people going forward. Very fascinating. You know what I mean? Like how I feel about my exes now is not how I felt about my exes 5-10 years ago. And it's based on the memories that I gathered and the experiences that I looked at myself through the perception of gaining experiences that I had after I dated them. And looking back in the retrospect of maybe gaining more objective experiences, perhaps, standing back and going, you know, maybe I should have said those things, or maybe what I said during that time, or this experience and this experience led to this experience, and this had a cause and effect experience, and when they did this, it wasn't that kind of icky, or when they did this, wasn't that kind of icky, and maybe I should have expected this out of them, but they weren't doing this. Maybe I shouldn't like them. It's very, very, very fascinating when you think about it in retrospect. And then some people who I disliked, in retrospect, I have gained to really like. I guess it just depends. I guess it depends on the way that we see things, the way that we gather our experiences. We gather experiences, we become more full-fledged people, we make room for them in our lives, I don't know how to explain it. Anyway, I hope you had found this conversation, enlightening, interesting. I found it interesting. It's a very interesting conversation.